Let's go for the second video dedicated to the Regulating for Decent Work conference. I'm still recording these in the ILO headquarters, so I'm easily disturbed with people going around and maybe a bit noisy, but I hope it will work well all in all. So the topics I'd like to deal with today are the following. First, the ILO itself. Second, what about the future of work and artificial intelligence, and a little note of gender at the workplace. First, the ILO. ILO, what is that? We are in the ILO headquarters, and finally we did not really say a word about how it works and what are the aims of ILO. The International Labour Organization has been created in 1919, and it has been here settled to produce recommendations, standards, conventions, protocols, declarations. A lot of different documents with different ways to write them, different efficacy at the workplace, impact at the workplace, so different documents. But over the past years, it has been shown that the number of standards produced per year is decreasing, and the number of countries ratifying the conventions and recommendations is also decreasing. So if we do think that these outcomes are related to the influence of ILO, we could be really worried about a decline of the influence of ILO around the world. So this is something to keep in mind. The influence of ILO is not really high, and it might be also decreasing. ILO work has also something to do with tripartism. Tripartism is something that has been evoked over the different sessions yesterday and today as well. So it has to do with the association of three partners: the employers organization, as well as the trade unions, so the workers' representatives, as well as governments. And ILO is supposed to act on the latter, the governments. It is supposed to provide some frames for governments to take their decision at the country level, and to transcribe and tailor the general recommendations to the specific context of each country. So something that is quite interesting is an example of what is that, and it has to do with something called the soft power. The example comes from apartheid in South Africa. So as you know, in the 60s, South Africa has been under apartheid, and the ILO has decided to write a declaration in 1964 on apartheid. So I'm not saying that ILO has directly contributed to eradicate apartheid from South Africa, but it added a layer on the source of pressure on South Africa to eradicate apartheid policies. So it is a really indirect influence, and probably minor one, because, and I'm no specialist of this topic, but sources of apartheid secession in the history are probably very multiple. But all of these shows several things. First, the influence of ILO is not really low, and it might be decreasing. But second, it has to do with tripartism and the influence of governments and soft power. So when we think about ILO, we could say that it's something that is working for nothing, it's useless and whatever. But if we leave all of these organizations focusing on workers' safety, workers' health at the workplace, we leave some more room for all of the other organizations that have nothing to do with the workers' safety and workers' health. So it may help to balance all of these in a globalized context. So it's still interesting, but we have to be aware that the efficacy of all that is quite limited, probably. The second point was, as I told, about the future of work and artificial intelligence. So about this, nothing very new. we know that over the past centuries, we had a bunch of different industrial revolutions. And if you think about the onset of the use of sewing machines in workshops, it was by itself a revolution. And at the beginning, workers, which were women most of the time, were not really happy with these machines, and probably contributed to some sabotage of this, fearing that they could lose their jobs. Professor De Stefano from the University of Louvain has pointed out that speeches of the future of work and transformation of the workforce often focus on the quantitative side, meaning there will be a decrease of the number of workers, but there is not a lot of interest on the content, on the work content, so on the qualitative side of all this. It is often said that to make some decisions, algorithms and machines could be better than humans. But machines are what we want. They are. We humans do make programmation for machines, right? So it's still not. It could be improved. Well, an example was about discrimination. Some algorithms used in human resources are able to discriminate male and female, but this is not something really appreciated. So we try to tick off the discrimination from the algorithm, meaning that we don't want to discriminate on gender or sex, but the machine is able to use proxies. So instead of basing on pronouns, he or she, in the analysis of CVs, for instance, the machine will use proxies, the way sentences are written, the, I don't know, character policies or whatever. And, well, it means that all of these should be improved. And once the machines are in place with such ways to act, it is difficult to remove these. Another thing is that is about the movement of the jobs around the world. Uma Rani from the ILO has pointed out that some jobs in this context were offshored from the developed countries to the developing countries in the digital industry. And these jobs are mostly unskilled. The example she took was that some people were asked to click on websites just to increase the traffic. But from the point of view of developing countries, such transformations provide opportunities to create jobs and to improve incomes. But on the other hand, automation at the very end could lead to reshoring those jobs to developed countries. With the use, for instance, of 3D printers, there will be no need to offshore the production to developing countries with the cost of transportation and whatever, if we're able to get it with automation locally. So it will create probably some troubles with these reshoring, offshoring movement. All of this has to also, in my mind, is related to a work that has been recently provided by the French National Agency on Safety Research, what we call the INRS in French, that has been providing a work on the future of work that is really, really interesting, and I encourage you to have a look to that. The last point I would like to mention quite shortly is that we had a lot of communication on gender at work. So many of these. Basically, I'm not a huge fan of the question of gender at the workplace, meaning I think that we should take the question of work by work itself, not by the individual, but by what is done. Meaning, either men and women could do the work. It's something that is highly criticable, and in the minutes I would like to talk about that. I wouldn't go in depth in that idea, but I attended a lot of, not a lot, but some sessions called Gender at Work, and basically it was only about women at work. And I'm a bit annoyed with that, because gender is not just with men and women, but there is a spectrum of genders nowadays that should be and must be taken into consideration with queer, with intergender, with transgender people. And I'm a bit worried that we do not have a lot of words on all these. And when you have a communication on gender at work, and you ask the other, okay, you're talking about women, I'm okay with that, but have you mentioned something about transgender people? Because they probably face specific experiences at the workplace, more unemployment, more discrimination, and probably there is a lot to do with especially transgender people. And well, it should be a path to explore in the future, and I would like people working on women at work to assume they are not talking about gender, they are talking about women. But that is fine. There's a lot of things to do about women at work. But I would like people not to talk about gender when they have this really, really old-fashioned view of gender, just talking about women in opposition to male. And not about all of the in-between thing, with a lot of people suffering from discrimination and a very specific experience of work that should be more investigated in the future. So, well, I hope that the settings for this video were quite good. I'm pretty sure that what I've said just lately was an opportunity for discussion, and I appreciate some comments if you wish, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. Even if I can't see you, I'm just seeing myself and the text. But meeting you tomorrow for another video on this Congress.